The alien fortress went silent in less than 10 seconds. Elite warriors collapsed where they stood. Commanders fell, mid-sentence. Guests screamed, then hit the floor. Only one human was still standing. Deep below the grand hall. Evan Cole wiped grease from his hands and frowned at the shaking wall. The vibration was wrong. Too clean, too even. He knelt beside an open maintenance panel, surrounded by old cables, thick pipes, and dust that had not been touched in decades. Above him, the alien celebration continued. Music, laughter. Pride. Evan was invisible? That was how they liked it. He was a human systems technician, hired to maintain legacy infrastructure. Old systems. Outdated systems. Human systems. Alien engineers had replaced almost everything with sleek, glowing technology. Almost everything. What they could not remove, they ignored. Evan noticed things others missed. His wrist tool flickered. A strange energy spike rolled through the fortress grid. Not power. Not data. Something else? That's not right, he muttered. He tapped his cum and sent a short alert to security. Unidentified energy pattern moving through biological shield layers. Recommend investigation? Number? Reply. He tried again. This isn't background noise. It's tuned. Still, nothing. Above him, under artificial stars and floating lights, alien commanders praised their defenses. They spoke proudly of perfection. Of how no force in the galaxy could touch this place. They laughed at the idea of danger. Then the attack. Hit. The fortress itself seemed to hum. A low resonance passed through the walls, the floors, the air. It was invisible, silent, and deadly precise. A weapon designed not for machines, but for nervous systems. In the grand hall, alien bodies locked up. Muscles spasmed. Eyes went wide. One by one, they collapsed like puppets with cut strings. Guards dropped their weapons. Commanders fell hard against marble floors. The silence that followed was absolute. In the maintenance corridor, Evan staggered, but stayed on his feet. His ears rang. His vision blurred. The resonance passed through him. And faded. He gasped and grabbed the wall. Human nervous system, he whispered. Different frequency. His screen lit up with alarms from the main network. Then nothing. Every modern system went dark at once. Someone had just shut down the fortress from the inside. Heavy footsteps echoed above. Evan killed his connection instantly, yanking cables free with bare hands. Sparks flew. He ducked back into the narrow service corridor and pulled the panel shut. Moments later, unknown figures entered the grand hall. They moved with perfect calm. Augmented soldiers. Half flesh, half machine. Their armor was dull gray, designed to swallow light. Their eyes glowed faintly as they scanned the fallen aliens. Their leader stepped forward. Secure the perimeter, he said evenly. Non-lethal restraints on priority targets. Begin Phase 2. His voice carried authority, confidence. Believed the fortress was theirs. Evan watched everything through an old camera feed. Grainy, blurry, analog, untouchable. They think the system is dead, he said softly. They think everyone is helpless. He checked the alien life signs. Most were alive. Unconscious, vulnerable. The augmented soldiers moved fast. Locking doors, sealing sections, taking hostages. Evan felt the old weight return to his chest. The familiar pressure of memory. Once before, he had hidden while others died. Once before, he had trusted that someone else would act. Not again. He opened a hidden floor schematic. one never uploaded to the alien network. Old blueprints. Human blueprints. Maintenance shafts. Manual breakers. Emergency systems with physical switches. Places no one had bothered to map. The fortress was a machine. And machines had weaknesses. Evan grabbed his toolkit and a heavy battery. Panchi's hands were steady now. "I'm not a soldier," he whispered to the empty corridor. "But this building listens to me." The augmented leader's voice echoed through the fortress speakers. "To any survivors," he announced calmly, "remain where you are. Resistance will result in casualties." Evan stepped into the shadows of the service tunnels, moving fast. And silent. "Yeah," he said quietly. "About that." He reached the first manual power junction and placed his hand on a thick steel lever that had not been used in years. The human variable was now active, and the fortress was about to wake. The first breaker slammed down with a heavy metallic clang. The fortress went dark. Emergency lights snapped on a heartbeat later. But they were weak, uneven, flickering like dying stars. In the grand hall above, the augmented soldiers froze. "This sector just lost primary power," one of them reported. "That's impossible," another replied. "Central control shows no failure." Evan Cole was already moving. He sprinted through the narrow maintenance corridor, boots echoing softly against metal grating. His wrist tool displayed an outdated schematic layered over reality: pipes, vents. Ladders, a maze he knew by heart. They controlled the network. He controlled the bones dot in the west concourse. 2 augmented soldiers moved to secure an access door. The moment they touched the control panel, it sparked and died in their hands. "What the?" The door slammed shut behind them. Mechanical locks engaged with a deep, angry growl. They were trapped. Evan slid down a service ladder and reached another junction box. This one controlled internal gravity stabilizers for an art gallery. A system meant to keep fragile alien sculptures floating perfectly still. He twisted a physical dial and smiled grimly. The floor tilted dot inside the gallery. Augmented soldiers stumbled as gravity shifted sideways. One slammed into a display wall. Hard enough to crack it. Another lost footing entirely and crashed into a pillar. "Report," the augmented commander barked over comms. "What is happening?" No one had a clean answer. Evan moved again, faster now. He reached a manual fire control valve hidden behind a decorative wall panel. The modern fire system had been hijacked by the invaders. But this one was old. Mechanical, human dash-built. He turned it. Foam cannons exploded to life in the central corridor, blasting thick white suppressant everywhere. It coated walls, flooded floors, and swallowed vision whole. Augmented optics struggled instantly. "Visual failure," one soldier snapped. "Thermals are useless." Their voices were tight now. Confused, not good, Evan thought. Confused means slow. He ducked into another service hatch as 2 augmented soldiers rushed past blindly. Weapons raised, firing at shadows. A second later, Evan reached up and pulled a final lever. The floor beneath them vanished. Not literally, but close enough. The service lift beneath their feet dropped 6 meters before emergency brakes slammed it to a halt. The impact shook the shaft violently. Both soldiers went down hard. Pinned inside the lift, alive, but stuck. Evan didn't stop to watch. Across the fortress, alarms screamed. Lights pulsed. Doors locked and unlocked without warning. To the invaders, the fortress was becoming unpredictable, hostile. This is not random, the augmented leader said calmly, though his tone had changed. Sharper now. We are facing an active defender. He paused. A human? He added. Evan heard the announcement through a half-working speaker and grimaced. So much for subtle. He muttered. He checked the old camera feeds again. The alien. Defenders were still unconscious, but one signal flickered. A senior alien commander, alive. Held in a botanical observation dome near the top of the fortress. Evan inhaled slowly. Saving one meant saving all. He started climbing. Up ladders meant for maintenance drones. Through vents too small for augmented bodies. Sweat burned his eyes. His hands shook from effort, but he kept moving. The botanical dome came into view through a ceiling grate. Alien plants glowed softly in the dark. Water trickled from artificial waterfalls. And there, bound by glowing restraints, sat General Harris, a towering alien warrior. Biomineral armor fused to his skin. His chest rose and fell slowly. Guarded by one augmented soldier. Evan watched carefully. The soldier stood near an irrigation control pipe. Back turned. Evan smiled faintly. He dropped silently behind a cluster of glowing plants and crawled to the valve. It resisted, rusted from neglect. He forced it. The pipe burst. Pressurized nutrient water blasted out like a cannon. The augmented guard spun too late. The thick fluid covered his senses, clogging joints, blinding optics. Evan rushed forward. He didn't punch. He didn't kick. He swung a heavy steel wrench straight into the back of the augmented's knee joint. Metal cracked. The guard collapsed with a distorted mechanical scream. One more blow to the helmet. Silence. Evan rushed to General Karros and tore the restraints free. The alien commander groaned and slumped forward. You, Karros rasped, vision unfocused. The human. Yeah, Evan said, hauling him up. We'll talk later. He half-dragged the massive alien into a ventilation tunnel and sealed the grate. Moments later, the augmented leader's voice filled the fortress again. I know who you are now, he said calmly. You are the variable. Evan pressed his back against the wall, breathing hard. You have my attention, human? The lights across the fortress dimmed further. Power was being redirected. The hunter was adapting. Evan looked down at the alien commander he had just saved. This just got worse, he whispered. General Karros leaned heavily against the vent wall, his massive frame shaking with slow breaths. The bioelectric weapon had broken his balance. His strength was still there, but his body refused to obey it. Evan Cole crouched beside him, adjusting the alien's restrained collar into a temporary brace. Stay awake, Evan said quietly. If you pass out, I can't move you. Karros made a low sound that might have been a laugh. You should have left me, he rasped. One human life is not worth a commander. Evan didn't look up. That thinking gets people killed. Karros studied him with all four eyes, confusion mixing with pain. The fortress trembled again. Not from damage, but from control. Power lines rerouted. Pressure doors sealed. Entire sectors went black. He's reshaping the battlefield, Karros said. The augmented leader. He learns fast. Yeah, Evan replied. So do I. Evan pulled open an old service panel and rerouted airflow through a secondary duct. Fresh air rushed in. Karros straightened slightly. That's better, the alien admitted. Evan checked his wrist display. 2 more alien officers still showed. Weak life signs. Both held near the diplomatic wing. Between them and safety stood 8 augmented soldiers. Then we split them up, Evan said. Karos frowned. You are injured? Alone? Unarmed. Evan glanced at his hands. Bruised. Cut. Still. Steady. I don't need weapons, he said. I need bad assumptions. They moved. The diplomatic wing had once been a place of calm. Now it was dark and silent. Broken only by faint emergency lights, Bethem stopped at a structural junction and opened another manual panel. He crossed 2 wires. The floor shook violently. Artificial gravity spiked and dropped in rapid pulses. Heavy enough to pin, light enough to throw, augmented soldiers slammed into walls. One crashed into the ceiling when gravity reversed for half a second. What is causing this? One shouted. A malfunction. Another replied. Evan crawled through the chaos, dragging Karos into a side corridor. You're using the building like a weapon, Karos said in disbelief. No, Evan replied. I'm using it like it was built. They reached the diplomatic wing door. It was sealed. Evan tapped the frame thoughtfully. Then he smiled. He climbed up a maintenance ladder, pried open the ceiling plate, and dropped behind the 2 augmented guards inside. Before they could turn, Evan kicked the manual fire release. Gas hissed. Thick suppressant foam poured from ceiling vents, swallowing the room in seconds. Inside the white blindness, sound vanished. Evan moved by memory. One guard slipped and fell. Another fired wildly. Evan smashed a control console with his wrench. The door locks disengaged. 2 alien diplomats staggered free, coughing. Move, Evan ordered. Now. They ran. But the fortress answered. A deep alarm tone echoed. Red lights. Flared. The augmented leader spoke again, his voice everywhere. I admire your resistance, human, he said. But you are becoming expensive. A pause. I offer a choice. Evan froze. Surrender yourself, the voice continued. And the remaining hostages will live. Karos turned slowly toward Evan. The meaning was clear. One life for many. The old memory surged in Evan's chest. The ship. The screams. The choice someone else had made. Not again. Evan didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out the data drive he had copied earlier. The phantom signal. What if? I don't play your game, Evan said aloud. He jacked the drive into an old transmitter port. Across the fortress, data spikes erupted. You took this building, Evan continued. But you didn't erase its history. The augmented leader's comm cracked slightly. Is that device? Proof, Evan said. Images flashed across unsecured screens. Experimental labs. Human prisoners. Forced cybernetic implants, alien council signatures. Silence followed. Karos stared at the screens in horror. You were made, Evan said quietly. Not born a monster. The augmented leader didn't speak. Then the fortress shook harder than before. No more delays, the voice said coldly. Terminate all resistance. Bulkheads slammed shut. Oxygen levels dropped. Evan felt the air thin. He looked at Karos and the freed diplomats. Run, he said. They hesitated. I said run, they. Pangaea Bydad Evans stayed behind, watching the doors close. He whispered to the empty corridor. Okay, let's finish this. The oxygen thinned fast. Evan felt it first in his chest, a slow tightening like an invisible hand closing around his lungs. The emergency lights flickered as the fortress shifted into full lockdown mode. The augmented leader had stopped pretending. Across the structure, heavy doors slammed shut. Ventilation slowed. Temperature controls dropped. He wasn't just hunting anymore. He was suffocating them. Evan moved fast. He ducked into a narrow service crawl space as armored footsteps thundered past the corridor. Augmented soldiers moved in perfect coordination. Weapons raised. Optics scanning through smoke and shadow. They couldn't see him. Not yet. Evan crawled through dust and cables, ignoring the ache in his ribs. Every breath burned. His wrist display flashed warnings he didn't need to read. Low oxygen. Rising CO. Critical. The fortress was becoming a tomb. General Carrows staggered through an emergency stairwell with the rescued diplomats. His legs shook, but he forced himself forward. "Move," he growled. "Do not stop." Behind them, a young alien diplomat collapsed, gasping. Carrows turned back instantly, lifting the smaller being onto his shoulder despite his own injuries. A human would have called it stubbornness. To the aliens, it was something new. Leadership learned the hard way. Deep inside the maintenance layers, Evan reached the environmental control junction. It was old, really old. Thick metal wheels. Manual pressure gauges. No wireless input. Perfecto. He slammed a wrench into the valve. Lock and twisted, the system screamed in protest. Air surged through forgotten ducts, forcing oxygen into sealed sections the augmented didn't even know existed. Somewhere above, soldiers stumbled as pressure shifted. "Environmental breach," one reported. "That is impossible," another replied. Evan smiled weakly. "Everything's impossible," he whispered, "until it isn't." But the victory was short. The fortress responded violently. Entire sections of the building powered down. Emergency lighting died. Darkness swallowed everything. Movement. Evan froze as a tall silhouette stepped into the maintenance junction. Glowing eyes. Chrome limbs. The augmented leader himself. "You are predictable," the machine man said calmly. "You move where logic says you must." Evan raised his wrench. "That's funny," he coughed. "People say that about me too." The augmented leader didn't attack. He studied Evan. "You are not a soldier," he said. "Not trained. Not enhanced." Evan shrugged. "Still here?" "Apposio were meant to die quietly," the leader continued. "Like the others." The words struck harder than any weapon. Evan saw the burning ship again. Heard the screams he couldn't stop. His grip tightened. "Yeah," Evan said hoarsely. "So were you." For the first time, the augmented leader hesitated. That half-second saved Evan's life. Evan slammed the emergency gravity. Override. The floor lurched. Both men crashed sideways. The augmented leader hit the wall hard, but recovered. Instantly, Evan wasn't so lucky. He slammed into a console, pain exploding through his back. The leader advanced. "You cannot win," it said. "But you can still end this." A compartment opened in the augmented's chest. Inside an uplink core. "Come with me," the leader said. "Your data, your proof. We can change everything." Evan stared at the glowing core, freedom.truth, at the cost of everyone else. He laughed. Weakly, "You still don't get it." Evan said. He reached behind him and pulled the final breaker. The maintenance level exploded into blinding light as every old world power reserve dumped at once. Systems. Fry.sensors screamed. The augmented leader staggered as feedback ripped through his CYBERNETICS. Evan crawled toward the exit. Vision fading. Above them, General Karras burst into the grand atrium, carrying the last diplomat. Fire licked the walls. Smoke filled the air. And then a human figure stumbled out of the darkness. Evan collapsed at Karras's feet. Alive. Barely. K. HAROs dropped to one knee, gripping Evan's shoulder. You should have died, the commander said quietly. Evan managed. A weak grin. Yeah, he whispered. I'm bad at that. Behind them, the fortress shook again. But this time, the augmented leader screamed. The fortress was dying. Not slowly, not gracefully, it screamed. Still groaned as structural supports overheated. Emergency sirens failed. Mid-warning lights flickered between red and nothing at all. Smoke rolled through the atrium like a living thing. General Karras lifted Evan with both arms. The human weighed far more than he looked. Medics, Karras roared. Now? But the medics never reached them. The floor behind them exploded outward. The augmented leader emerged from the fire. His armor was cracked. One arm hung, twisted and useless. Sparks crawled across his chrome spine like insects. But he was still walking, still coming. Do not move, the leader said, voice distorted but steady. This ends now. The remaining augmented soldiers formed up behind him, weapons raised. The alien guards raised their rifles to dot. No one fired, no one breathed. Evan coughed weakly in Karras's grip. Blood sputtered his lips. Hey, Evan rasped. Bad news. Karras leaned closer. Save your strength. Evan shook his head. That thing. It's not bluffing. The augmented leader stepped forward. The upload will complete in 90 seconds, he said. Your leaders will learn the truth. My truth. He looked directly at Evan. You made that possible? Evan laughed once, dry and painful. Guess I finally fixed something. The leader tilted his head. Join us, he said again. You understand systems? You understand sacrifice. Karras felt Evan tense. The alien commander tightened his grip. You will not take him? Karras growled. The leader ignored him. You are proof that flesh can defeat steel, the leader said to Evan. Together, we become unavoidable. Evan closed his eyes. For one terrifying moment. Karras thought the human was considering it. Then Evan spoke. Every monster, Evan whispered, thinks they're the hero. He opened his eyes. Difference is, I don't need people to die to prove it. Evan reached slowly into his torn jacket. Every weapon in the room tracked the movement. Karras tensed. The augmented soldiers adjusted aim. The leader raised one hand. Wait. Evan pulled out a small, black device. A manual kill relay. Old tech. Physical. NHACKABLE. Double quotes I wired this into your uplink core, Evan said. Back when you thought I was cornered. The augmented leader froze. That is impossible. Evan smiled. Faintly, you really should stop underestimating plumbers. Silence crashed down. If I trigger this, Evan continued, your upload dies. No truth. No movement. Just silence. The leader's voice softened. And if you do not, Evan exhaled slowly. Then everyone sees what they did to you. The augmented leader stood still. For the first time, uncertainty fractured his perfect logic. You would give up your leverage, the leader said. For us. Evan looked at K.E. Hagrose, at the injured soldiers, at the terrified diplomats. No, Evan said quietly. For them. The countdown echoed through the leader's internal systems. 30 seconds. Kairos felt the weight of the moment. This? Bleeding held the fate of an entire species in his shaking hand. The leader stepped closer. History is written by those who survive, he said. Evan nodded. Then let's make it honest. He pressed the button halfway. The fortress shook violently. Systems screamed. The upload paused. The leader staggered. No. The leader shouted, lunging forward. Kairos reacted instantly. He turned, shielding Evan with his own armored body. A beam tore through Kairos's shoulder. He roared but stayed standing. Evan slammed the button fully. The uplink cord detonated in a burst of light and static. Every augmented soldier dropped to one knee. The leader collapsed. Systems failing. Optics dimming. The fortress went quiet. Too quiet. Smoke hung in the air. Kairos sank to his knees, finally setting Evan down gently. Evan's breathing was shallow, his eyes unfocused. But he was smiling. Hey, he murmured. Did we win? Kairos removed his helmet. His voice shook. Yes, he said. We did. Alarms began again, but different this time. Rescue. Alarms. Authority forces. Medical teams. The galaxy was watching now. Evan's hand slipped from the relay. His chest rose once, then stopped. Kairos froze. No, he whispered. The alien. Commander bowed his head over the human technician who had carried them all through fire. Outside, sirens wailed. Inside, history held its breath. The human did not wake up. Medical drones surrounded Evan Cole's body, their soft blue light scanning, measuring, trying. Again and again. Each time, the same result. Cardiac failure. Oxygen deprivation. System shock. General Kairos stood over Pangium unmoving. He had commanded armies. He had watched worlds burn. He had ordered soldiers into battles he knew they would not survive. But this was different. This human had not been a warrior. No armor, no weapons. No rank. Just a man with tools, knowledge, and a refusal to leave others behind. Time of death. Confirmed, a medic said quietly. The words felt wrong. Evan Cole had held the line when machines and monsters failed. How could the universe simply stop him? Kairos slowly straightened. Every alien in the atrium watched him. The augmented soldiers were being restrained now, their systems inert. Their leader lay silent, eyes dark, no longer a commander, just evidence. Outside the shattered embassy, news. Drones hovered like metal birds. The galaxy was watching. And for the first time, it was listening. The data Evan released spread faster than any fleet. Project Vanguard. Illegal experimentation. Forced augmentation. Entire prison populations, erased and rebuilt as tools, names, dates, orders, signatures. From the highest levels of galactic authority. Worlds erupted in outrage, councils dissolved overnight. Executions followed resignations. The augmented were no longer called terrorists, they were called victims. History shifted violently. 3 days later, the Galactic Assembly convened an emergency session. At the center of the Great Hall stood a simple object. A human wrench bent, burnt, cracked with heat damage, recovered from the embassy ruins. This, the speaker announced, is the instrument that defeated a force no army could stop. The delegates murmured, "Not a discomfort, double," quotes Evan Cole, the speaker continued, "was not a soldier. He held no authority, no enhanced body, no political power." The speaker paused. He had knowledge. The whole fell silent. He knew the old systems, the forgotten ones. He understood that progress does not erase foundations, it builds on them. A large alien delegate stood. Why did he not run? It demanded. Why did he not save himself? General Karros stepped forward. His shoulder was still bound. His armor scorched. He tried, Karros said. Then he corrected himself. He could have. The general's voice hardened. But humans do not measure survival the same way we do. Looked around the chamber. When the choice came, Evan Cole did not ask who deserved saving. He asked who needed it. A new doctrine passed that day, Human Integration Protocol. Every embassy, every station, every warship, at least one human systems. Specialist assigned not for combat, for failure, for chaos, for the moments when perfection collapses. Human manuals replaced half the galaxies. Digital-only systems. Physical overrides returned. Analog backups. Redundancy upon redundancy. The galaxy learned a painful truth. Perfect systems fail. Humans expect failure. They plan for it. A memorial was built on the embassy plaza. Not a statue, no. Heroic pose. Just a maintenance panel set into a wall. Beside it, a simple plaque in every known language. Evan Cole technician, he fixed what could not be Plastelian. Soldiers began stopping there before missions. Touching the panel. For luck. For humility. General Karros visited once a year. He stood silently, helmet under his arm. He never spoke. He didn't need to. The lesson had already been learned. Somewhere far away. A young human recruit asked an instructor why this galaxy feared humans. The instructor thought carefully before answering. They don't fear our strength, he said. They fear what we do when everything breaks. The galaxy expanded. Wars still happened. Mistakes still happened. But now, in every crisis, someone asked the same question. Is there a human on site? Because when the lights went out, when systems failed, when plans collapsed, humanity stepped forward not as conquerors, not as gods, but as the ones who stayed.